Hello, troopers, and welcome to episode 4 of the Real Jumpers podcast. I am your host, Turner Thompson, and joining me are a couple of my friends. Say hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
What's up?
All right, now then, troopers, sign off, starting from the top.
Hi, guys. I am a Kemi Liar, a.k.a. Nikki. I am a streamer on Twitch and upcoming VTuber, hopefully.
It's your resident, local, and well-known Gundam pilot, Dennis here. Hi, how you doing? Gundams will always be better than giant monsters, so please agree with me everywhere.
I'm going to kill you, I swear.
Debatable. Highly debatable.
Well, I'd like to mention that there is someone who agrees in the comments of one of our videos, so...
My fan base is growing.
What's up, y'all? It's Dion, aspiring voice actor, and here to laugh at the movies that Turner makes us watch.
Hi guys, I'm Nico, and I'm an illustrator, and I'm dragged against my will.
I'm Steven, Steve-O, whatever these guys decide to call me. Don't have any socials or anything yet, but I'm glad to be here.
All right, cool. So today, troopers, we watched the American version of Rodan. One of our squad mates, Nicole, is going to be joining us today. She has been wanting to be a part of this podcast since day one. However, scheduling and everything just never panned out for us. So I'm glad to have her as part of the team. And unfortunately, one of our other regular squad mates, Dom, will not be joining us today because unfortunately things are just not working out for him. So, considering the subject matter of the movie that we are watching today, I thought it would be important to have one of our squad mates, Nikki, talk about the importance of the message of this film and why we're going to be discussing potential donations for the relief for Hurricane Milton and Helen.
We are very, very aware that the movie Rodan is a simile and it is a comparison to natural disasters, hurricanes, tsunamis, what have you. All right, we did not plan this, and it's purely coincidental about the time of this coming out. That being said, 3 of the squad mates, including myself, got caught in Hurricane Helene when it hit the southeast of America. Our town was completely destroyed and everything, and if you've gone to the news, you've seen all of the destruction. And then immediately after Helene hit, it was Hurricane Milton. And it is just absolutely terrible. Our town's recovering pretty well, but other towns are not. There are many places that are still under search and rescue, many places that literally got wiped off the map. That being said, because of this natural disaster that has occurred, and because our hearts are so distraught with what has happened, we have links in the description and the bio of the channel for donations to go to website that do provide donations for relief. Please donate if you can. Please do not put yourself out for the sake of us, because that would make nobody happy. Anything helps. Money, water, canned food goods, what have you. You could probably find local drives around your neighborhood. It would mean the world to all these people.
So like we said before, today, troopers, we watched the American version of the movie Rodan. This is one of my favorite old school solo kaiju films, and it's one of the rare ones that doesn't involve Godzilla. It's a shocker.
You lied to us. You said this was a Godzilla podcast.
No, it's a sci-fi podcast. We're just starting with the Godzilla franchise.
Exactly, yes. I said it was sci-fi so that I could branch into other stuff if I want to. I really want to talk about Star Wars and Jurassic Park at some point, but I had to start
Transformers.
Somewhere. Maybe. That's a maybe on my list, but it is sci-fi, so if we get big, maybe I'll do that.
Maybe Alien franchise?
Oh, I do want to do Alien, but that's a topic for another day. For my research, I'd like to shout out Wikizilla, Wikipedia, and the YouTubers Firewood Media and Paperfins for their videos on this film. Links to their channels will be in the description below. Like always, we would like to make a disclaimer that the point of our podcast is to entertain. So if we happen to get anything wrong or mispronounce any names, we are sorry, and we encourage you to do your own research if these films interest you. Please comment below what we might have gotten wrong or any other fun facts about the film. And remember to drop us a like and subscribe if you enjoy the show. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, gear up. We're jumping feet first into the heart of sci-fi. This is Real Jumpers. Now let's drop! Like always, I would like to start with some background. Rodan is a 1956 Japanese kaiju film produced and distributed by Toho Studios. This is the third film canon to the Showa Era Godzilla films and is the first kaiju film Toho ever did in full color, using a technique called Toho Scope. Toho Scope is an anamorphic lens system developed in the late 1950s by Toho Studios in response to the popularity of CinemaScope. Its technical specifications are identical to those of CinemaScope, so it's kind of ironic that they gave it their own name. This film was spawned under the combined efforts of producer Tomoyuki Tanaka, director Ishiro Honda, and special effects wizard Eiji Tsuburaya, who I'm starting to really fall in love with this guy because I'm watching a ton of Ultraman, and he is the godfather of that. And oh my god, it's such a wild ride. Maybe we'll talk about Ultraman on this podcast, but that's so much stuff.
Hell yeah.
Add it to the list.
Can I mention something about the color?
Sure.
Yeah, this is about 3 years after color started being used regularly in Hollywood. So this is one of the first couple of films that was ever produced with color.
Exactly. That was one of the huge selling points.
In Japan, Hollywood, it was in the 1930s.
I also like to go ahead and mention to a lot of the viewers that does not mean that this color was seen throughout the world in color, because they filmed it on a color recorder, but if you still had a TV that could only do black and white, you were still forced to watch it in black and white.
And you can sure as hell tell that they are proud of that color camera.
Oh, they are.
Oh yeah, we were going to mention that when we get to the synopsis. So the good news is that unlike Godzilla Raids Again, this movie was directed by Ishiro Honda, who is returning as the director from the first movie ever, Gojira. So I get the feeling they're doing this because they really wanted to distance themselves from Raids Again, which I want to make a correction from last episode, or excuse me, the last two-parter. We claimed that it was a year and a half. We were wrong. They made that movie in 6 months.
Jeez.
Ooh, that's
No wonder.
Really?
Ooh, that sounds like
6 months.
It shows.
a really bad turnaround.
And suddenly my rant makes all the more sense. I still justify my
Wait a minute. They made it in 6 months, and the American one came out in 59?
Yeah, because again, so much.
So in America, Rodan came out before Raids Again.
Yes.
Oh my god.
I think that also adds to that whole thing that you were saying, why does no one know Gigantus? Because it's a vastly inferior film to the thing that came out a few years before. All right, so to pen the story, they brought on veteran redder Ken... Oh, God.
What?
Koronuma. Oh, no, I'm not even going to bother.
Koronuma.
Koronuma, thank you, who wrote an original story for the film, and he himself is a novelist. He was inspired by an accident that happened in Kentucky, 1948, when Captain Thomas F. Mantell, a pilot for the Kentucky Air National Guard, died in a crash while allegedly pursuing a UFO.
Huh.
So,
Was it covered up by the Illuminati?
no. No, huge shout out to my favorite podcast, to Illuminati. Go watch them. They're totally worth it. It's such a great show.
It's weird how sometimes the basis of a movie can come up from the weirdest of circumstance. Like this in and of itself, if Rodan doesn't exist, tell me, what would you normally think if you hear that an Air National Guard died by pursuing a UFO? What? Someone looked at that and said, I can make a movie off of that. And they did. And it turned out fantastic. And I bet you, wherever they are right now, whether above or somewhere, they're just like, I'm glad I made that movie. Yep. Nope. I'm good.
So, the listeners will quickly discover that this movie's quality is vastly superior to Godzilla Raids Again. I find it hard to pin down exactly why this is, but if I had to make an educated guess, this is simply because Ishiro Honda was in charge of the reins this time, And I'm pretty sure he insisted that we, do a better job than we did on Raids Again, because like that guy made Godzilla. He knows what he's doing.
And it probably wasn't filmed in 6 months.
Yeah, I don't think it. I think this one was a solid year, at least. I think is what it was. So that's pretty good. Anyway, so the movie did well in Japan, and later on in 1957, the King Brothers Productions helped create the theatrical release of Rodan. It was quite successful in its first run in the United States. It was the first Japanese film to receive general release on the West Coast that made a strong showing in the box office. Like, it actually, this wasn't like a small sleeper hit like Godzilla or Raids Again, which Raids Again wasn't a sleeper hit. What am I talking about? Godzilla King of the Monsters was successful, but not by like a huge margin. Rodan was a huge hit. In fact, it was such a huge hit that it was the highest earning sci-fi film in 1957 and was one of the first ever movies to receive a humongous TV advertising campaign. One fun fact about that, one of the ad campaigns was, "Kids, draw Rodan on the screen. Quickly, use a pen and pencil, and here's an image of Rodan." It's like, because this is like a really weird time for television.
I could just imagine a kid saying, "I couldn't find any paper, so they just drew on the screen."
Oh my god.
That must have happened. That had to have happened.
And we don't do promotionals like that anymore.
No, we don't.
That's actually kind of upsetting.
Well, advertising has to change with the times. Like, for example, you can't advertise a movie like you did with the Blair Witch Project ever again. That's a once-in-a-lifetime. You can't do that again.
Yeah.
Speaking of advertising, one of the funny things about the advertising for this movie, I saw a ton of posters were saying something more startling than Jules Verne, which shows you how much I know. I was like, who the heck is Jules Verne? So I did my research, and it turns out he is considered, quote-unquote, the father of science fiction. His works include 5 Weeks in a Balloon, Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas, and Around the World in 80 Days. So this was also the era when advertising was full of BS. Because, they're like, "See the most titanic fight you've ever seen in your life," and it's like mildly more impressive than the last film you watched. You know what I mean?
Advertising is still like that. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Unfortunately, it's not more memorable than Jules Verne because Rodan has the one movie, and Journey to the Center of the Earth got a remake with The Rock. So
She's right. She's right on that one.
Before it was Brendan Fraser.
Is that comparable?
And it was done by Disney.
Yeah.
But granted, 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas was a great book. Today was the day I realized there was a movie about it.
Yeah. That's why there's a ride in Disney.
Yeah.
Ah.
That's just what I know. I know Journey to the Center of the Earth went from book to movie and then to remake with one of the biggest wrestlers / actors of all time. So, is it comparable?
I don't know. Regardless, speaking of movies, the movies that this film was competing against was The Black Scorpion, Attack of the Crab Monster, The Deadly Mantis, The Monster That Challenged the World, and the infamous Giant Claw. Which, I know you guys may not be aware of this, but the Giant Claw is a piece of work, and we might do it at some point, but wow.
If it's bad, I want to watch it.
I love I love roasting bad movies.
It's really bad.
For our listeners, I bet you some of you are fans of the Angry Video Game Nerd, or Cinemassacre, as he called. I think this is his channel now. He popularized, how bad the Deadly Claw was.
Oh.
The Giant Claw.
Oh, I remember that. I remember now.
You remember? I unlocked a memory.
You did.
But we'll talk about it some other time. But just long story short, my God.
Oh, it's a good one. It's good. You know what? Let's continue before we get into this debate.
So let us begin the synopsis. We open with a title sequence. The King Brother presents Toho Production, and it's kind of like Godzilla, where we get a title card and the iconic cry of Rodan. And it's fun because it looks like this weird kaleidoscope thing.
It looks like a SpongeBob opening.
It does.
All it's missing is Patchy the Pirate.
They were so happy. They were so happy that they could do all this stuff now. And color. We can mess with color now. I feel so bad for the people who still had a black and white TV at the time because they didn't get to enjoy any of that.
That would have looked so weird. It's just
You know what? It would have looked really weird because we covered this in one episode before that for black and white film, they did a lot of different color theory to make sure it popped correctly. My understanding, if it's correct, because I've seen so many old shows, when they popped over and were able to do color filming, they completely threw all that color theory out the side because they're like, people are going to start getting color TVs now. At the time, getting a color TV was like when we were kids and your friend had an HD TV.
I remember flat screen being impressive.
But like the kid down the street's got a flat screen. It was that giant TV that took up the entire room.
Yeah.
And so after the credits, we open to an American narrator, much like Godzilla Raids Again, because whoever did this movie had followed the same philosophy that they did with Godzilla Raids Again, where they have a whole narrator with that transatlantic accent talking about the U.S. bombing stuff.
But then that's when we actually found out it's the same one from Raids Again.
I actually figured it out. Yeah, because I went on IMDb and I love behind the voice actors. It's the same person.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's the same person for the American bit and the regular narrator throughout the rest of the film, so that's pretty impressive.
Oh, really?
It's an amazing skill that one gets when they've watched so much anime. They're like, this person sounds familiar. And I like, wait a minute. It's the same person.
So the narrator talks about how there's a remote island where there's this building that houses one of the mightiest weapons of destruction, and it is being used for a project called Mission Gigantic. And before long, they detonate it, and we see footage of a hydrogen bomb test. And I've always wondered, how the heck do they get the footage of the stuff being destroyed by atomic bombs? Because isn't the camera also there? How?
Zoom, enhance.
No, they don't, because it's not that good quality as it was. I think filming must have been a much more dangerous job back then.
See, you have Project Gigantic, or, in this universe, Ankylosaurus, Killer of the Living. Then you also have Camera Manus, Defender of the Living, living through every atomic explosion just to make sure he records it.
It's probably a matter of, we need to get footage of this thing here, but it's going to cost you your life and everything because it's an actual bomb. Who wants to do it? We're going to pay you triple.
I don't think there's actually a person there. I genuinely think they just set up a giant lead box with a camera inside it or something. I don't know. The narrator then begins to talk about how the Air Force cannot let the Army have one up on them and sets up an even bigger bomb where they blow up a bunch of decommissioned warships. And they're like, but what have these tests done to Mother Earth? Can the human race continue to deliver these staggering blows without arousing somewhere in the depths of Earth a reaction, a counterattack, a horror still undreamed of? And then from there, we cut back to a new narrator who is the same narrator from Godzilla Raids Again, like we said before. This time he's playing a new character. Kyushu is the island province of Japan where our narrator grew up, and his name is Shigeru. He goes on to explain that his hometown is a mining community, and everyone there depends on the coal mine for their livelihood. Shigeru begins to explain that the story began on a day just like any other day, all normal and routine, but there was a feeling of uneasiness in the air that all the men could feel it. Two men are then seen fighting inside the mining facility. They are Yoshi and Goro, and it seems that these two have a history of beef because this is the third time that they have fought, and they're getting a severe warning that if they do it again, they're both finished. Shigeru knows Goro and is planning to marry his sister. He goes on to claim that it's not like Goro to fight and blames it on the strange tension that's in the air.
Can I mention something? I've got personal beef with this movie. Just do this side. Why is there always somebody? Somebody's getting married to somebody in every single one of these films so far.
Gotta have romantic subplot to keep people interested, I guess.
Come on.
No one cares about the big monsters. It's all about the romantic subplot.
But we learned this from countless, films and things, Nobody wants to go, from engaged to married. No, we want to see up to the engaged part. That's like the entire plot of like 10,000 romance animes.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think almost every classic sci-fi from like the early 30s to the 50s and even the 60s all have this as a plot. I'm like, even the creature from the Black Lagoon has it. Dracula has it. The Wolfman has it. You can't avoid it.
No.
This is such shock to me because I've never watched a single Godzilla or monster movie in my life. So all I ever hear about it is, monster fights. And then I go into it like, we're getting married. I'm like, what is this?
It increases the tension when someone dies or goes missing.
Maybe. But in the last movie, he just like up and left her to go hang out with her dad.
Honestly, he did kind of take any opportunity not to be with her, even to the point of endangering his own life when there was a storm. Like,
Anyway,
just personal beef, man. And I love romance shit. This is like a lot.
So, anyway, after the beef between these two goes down, the miners then board the trams to go head down into the mines. Shigeru goes on to discuss how the men seem to be suddenly afraid of the dark and even affected by some creeping tension. Most of them seem to be very afraid of going down into mine shaft number 8, which was going too deep, and that the floor was creeping, which is caused when two strata of rock had too much coal removed between them, making it unstable. While tackling the problem in the drafting room to engineer a solution, Shigeru gets a call that Shaft 8 suddenly has flooded, and he then heads down into the mine to see what happened. Once down below, the miners explain to Shigeru that there was a break in the wall and a sudden flow of water, and that Yoshi and Goro were together when it happened and haven't been seen, which I find pretty odd. Like, why would a shift manager put those two together?
right? Like, they fight. They've been fighting for months. And, by the way, he's still your partner. Go down to this shaft. Go to Shaft 8. Get
The
your
ship
work done.
manager just hates them both and wants to see them both fired.
That I feel. You know what? I can see that.
No,
Yeah.
conspiracy theory. One of them is trying to start a union, so they're doing their underhanded tactics to get rid of.
Oh my god! Yeah,
Damn, that's some creative
Damn.
union busting right there.
Hey, I mean, it's coincidence. Coincidence with this now.
Shigeru then leads a group of 4 men down the shaft to find them, and they note that the water seems to be warm. And before long, they find Yoshi's body hacked to pieces, floating in the water, but no sign of Goro. As a side note, the sets look fantastic in this movie.
But the hack the pieces part does not, because you can't see a single injury on this dude.
No scratches, no dismembered body parts, nothing.
Like, come on, just add some fake blood or something, please.
Yeah.
So they bring his hacked apart body topside, and they explain that he was slaughtered like an animal, and that his corpse had a look of horror on his face, which it didn't.
None of that was true.
Could mention that when you look at the corpse, it looks like this man had not eaten in days.
It does look like that.
He looks emaciated, he had no stomach, and everybody's like, wow, that is sad.
That's like the only thing that was different about his corpse. He wasn't hacked to pieces. He didn't have a look of dread on his face. He just looked like a raisin.
A California raisin?
It seems that something sucked out his vitality. I don't know what it is. You mean, is it because he works in a mine? Nah, that couldn't possibly be it.
It just looked more like a cadaver.
It did kind of look like that, yeah. I mean, the actor did a good job almost doing rigor mortis. He looked very stiff, so good job on that guy.
Oh, wait. That was an actor? That wasn't like, damn,
prop?
that wasn't a prop?
I'm pretty sure that was a person.
It looked way too realistic.
If it was a prop, then that's the most convincing thing I've ever seen.
Because it looks like he just had a brief stint with Cell from Dragon Ball Z.
Mhm.
When he starts to absorb your life force.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He starts looking like that.
That's why. Oh, now I feel bad about the stomach. The thing I said. Damn, I just body shamed somebody. I'm so sorry.
All right. So the doctor on site is confused as to what could have caused his injuries, but he says that he will try to learn. What injuries?
Honestly.
In that entire scene, you just see Shigeru standing in the sterile room after he just got back in the mine. And I'm just like, and you have just desterilized the entire place. Please leave, sir.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's honest truth. I mean, if he was in any surgical room in any days, he would have been kicked out. I'm surprised that doctor wasn't screaming at him. The doctor was just like so calm. I don't know what to have done this, and everything. And I'm just sitting there screaming at the TV, get out! I've watched way too much MASH.
Get out! Get out! Get out!
So with Yoshi dead, his wife makes it to the hospital, and she is demanding to see her husband, and they deny her entry, leading to two men to confide in Shigeru that they think Goro murdered Yoshi. They even bring up that Shigeru might have a conflict of interest, considering that he wants to marry Goro's sister. Being their superior, though, he orders them to not speak of this until further proof is found, and then they just kind of agree with it. Weird workplace relations.
Yeah.
After leaving the hospital, Shigeru then goes to see Kyo-chan, or Kyo, as I'm not going to keep calling her Chan. They call her Chan, which I thought was pretty interesting that the dubbers even bothered to do that. So Kyo is Goro's sister, and she's asking about where her brother is and if he's a killer. Shigeru assures her that her brother is no killer. However, we can already see that the town's inhabitants have been making up their own mind in the court of public opinion, and she's quickly becoming ostracized.
That lady was getting ready to kill her.
She was so ready to kill
She
her.
was so ready to kill that lady. Oh, God.
And to me, I'm just like, why? Like, if she actually did, congratulations. You are now, call it whatever, avenging if it is. And if they do find his body later, guess what? You just made yourself even worse to the public because you just, it's my own personal opinion that the association like this, I do not get it and will never understand. Like, why do you put 1 and 3 together and expect the outcome to be 5?
It's because people are stupid.
That's true.
We then cut back to the mine, where we see a police officer and 2 workers who are deep down in Shaft 8 looking for Goro. They see a ripple in the water, and this prompts them to tie themselves together for safety, and they wade out into the water to see if it was Goro. As they move deeper and deeper, they call out for Goro before suddenly the man in the lead lets out a rather haunting scream as something grabs and pulls them under. The officer behind him begins to fire wildly into the water before he too is dragged into the water via the rope. The last one desperately cuts the rope in the nick of time and escapes the water. He makes a break for it as some strange, high-pitched rhythmic noises follow him. He attempts to use the phone at one of the checkpoints, but barely manages to cry for help over the line before the mysterious creature gets him, and the screams are quite haunting. Now, before any of you say anything, I want to preface this. This scene scared the heck out of me when I was a kid. It genuinely got to me, and I was a little disturbed. Go ahead. Before
we start, I'd like to mention that there's a difference here, Turner. You were like, what, 4, 5, whatever, child when we watch. We are fully grown-ass adults watching this. So there is a difference between the eyes watching this. Speak.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dion.
I know the quality of acting was different back this far back. But god damn, man. He looked like he was just like screaming and just like slowly just like crouching down in the water.
And then the police officer too later. Steve, were you about to explain that too?
No.
I love how the police officer fires 2 shots and then just like kind of it looks like he's diving in to get a closer third shot. It doesn't look like he was pulled in. It's like, I'll avenge you. Oh.
Wasn't this the scene where he kept screaming at the one person to shut up?
Yeah.
Yes, this is.
Well, if none of you have seen this scene, you all need to look it up. It is so good because it is so bad.
He looks like he just remembered that he left the oven on and he's at work. And it's like, oh no, no, no!
Dude's just spacing out on the job. Oh wait, I have to act now, right?
I will mention that the screams are dubbed in. There are different ones in the Japanese, but like it's not much better.
It's not much better? Okay.
No.
I'll believe you.
But it is different. It's a different vibe.
Okay.
Like I get when you're acting and you like suddenly get a cue. It could be paralyzing if you're not mentally prepared. But all you had to do was give a believable scream.
Well, again, this is the dubbed scream that you're hearing. So this is from some dude in the comfort of his home doing this.
No. Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm talking about the voice actor.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, Dion. So if we're done ripping on this scene and making me feel stupid, later their 3 bodies were recovered, and the mining company brought in an outside scientist named Dr. Kashiwagi, who in the meeting goes on to explain that along with the bizarre injuries, that some of these men have died of shock, implying that whatever did this was so horrifying it could kill by fright alone. It's also interesting, like, we'll discuss what it is later, but like, it's interesting that the thing that's attacking these people doesn't seem to eat them. It just kind of brutalizes them and then goes on. Isn't that kind of odd?
Sounds like territorial protection.
That's like a simile or a metaphor for a heart attack, isn't it?
Maybe, but like, I don't think there's a simile here. I think it's just meant to be like a classic monster movie. Like, it's just, why is it?
It baffles my mind because, okay, I'm going to go off on it's a small tangent. It's how they describe deaths in literature, in media, because I remember reading Macbeth a long time ago. And it was, no, not Macbeth, it was in Romeo and Juliet, where one of the characters died of a broken heart. And it was just like, how do you die from a broken heart? How do you die from fear?
I don't know.
How is an emotion so great that you could die from it?
From fear, heart attack.
Yeah.
That's a heart attack. No. So I don't know what the broken heart one is.
Heart attack. That's
Yeah.
how Padme died in the...
It's like
Yeah.
how they describe these things, and I'm like, what? Okay, can you just tell me what the medical term is? Oh, they died of a heart attack from the fear. Like they think that's a bit more easy to understand. You know,
It's like the Death Note. No specifics. Default to heart attack.
there you go.
News of this reaches the rest of the town, and the wife of Yoshi is furious because, again, the court of public opinion claims that Goro is responsible for all this. So the wife of Yoshi is dead set on murdering Kyo, and like the whole town has to hold her back. She's got some strong Karen energy.
Very much so.
She needs a Kit Kat. She's not her when she's hungry. Oh, wait, that's a Snickers. I'm sorry.
Close enough. Why is she going after Kyo when it's Goro? I get they're related, but it seems like her revenge target is a bit misplaced.
Like that's what I was trying to say earlier. Like, why?
Why?
Association killing is not the answer here. You're just gonna make herself and your family even worse.
Yeah, that's not wise. But regardless, luckily the whole town is able to stop her. I think Kyo is wearing a kimono in this scene. I don't know exactly what that garment is called, but it's interesting because this is the time period in Japan where like feudal style villages right next to modern metropolises was not that rare. I think that still is a thing in Japan. That
If I understand correctly, it's like their own version of like an industrial revolution, where modernism comes into play. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure there's somebody in this chat that knows better than I. There's like multiple different forms of kimonos. There's a more ceremonious form that is worn during like festivals and things like that, and then there's a more at-home style, right?
Yes.
There you go.
There's also the summer version, which is called a yukata.
Mm-hmm. So it's probably the more at-home version she was wearing.
It's probably true. I didn't really look into it. I just remembered it, so I wanted to bring it up. So, after Yoshi's wife was dragged away, Shigeru makes it home and goes to Kyo, and she confides in him that she doesn't want to be here anymore. The killings, the whole town hates her, and she's convinced that something terrible is in the mine. I think Shigeru says something like, "You should go," and like it doesn't, like, the way the voice actor did it, it sounded like, well, then maybe you should leave, in like a really disrespectful tone, not in a like, then we'll leave together. It almost sounded like he was like, look, this is inconvenient for me. How about you leave while I stay here and keep making money or something?
Like, damn, dude, didn't have to do it like that.
It's how the voice actors act that makes me wonder why romance is even a thing in these movies.
Exactly. So, as the young couple embrace, they are interrupted by one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen.
This actually it gave me a mini heart attack when I was like, what the fuck is that thing?
It's this part.
Yeah.
Oh.
I thought we were watching a movie about a giant pterodactyl thing.
Nope.
Nope.
So their back door is open, or sliding door, because, yeah, like, that's what they have, those paper-thin sliding doors. And around the corner, this ridiculous-looking, like, bug caterpillar thing with crab-like claws and blue eyes just walks in, and, like, I feel so bad. There was a bird cage that the thing completely backhands and just sends it across the room, and I feel so bad for the birds that were
Poor
in
Tweety.
Along with it is the most annoying sound in the entire movie. I don't know if it's just me because I don't do too well with high-pitched noises, but every scene this thing is in just has this really high-pitched noise that is just so grating on the ears that I almost had to stop watching a couple times just because it was so bad.
Yeah, no, I agree with Steve. At first, it's like that's a noise that you're not really, you get caught off guard, and then every time you hear it, it's like can it stop now, please?
Yeah. If I had to describe the sound for our listeners, I think it's like, take a grasshopper and that cute noise that guinea pigs make and cross the two, make it really high-pitched and make it faster. That's kind of like what it sounds like.
No, to me, though, what it sounds like is, you know those keychain alarms that you can grab, like at some like back-end store or things like that? Take one of those, put it in its own echo, and just enhance it by 5.
I was going to say it sounded like an old squeaky wheel or a video projector that needs oil.
You know what? That sounds perfect. That's probably what they used.
Or something. I actually didn't look into what that was, so I don't have that in my trivia.
What's the name of the monster?
It's called a Meganula. They don't name it in the American version. I need to check, but I think they name it in the Japanese, or they named it in outside sources, but it's called a Meganula, and I have some fun facts about that later.
I will admit, it's kind of interesting how it's a weird thing of where we're now, 3 movies in, and they don't outwardly state, because of the fact where us, the viewer, know that it's in the same universe. You're wondering, as you're watching the movie, is this considered its own continuity? From its own continuity from, the rest of the Godzilla movies, right?
Yes.
It's interesting because normally, like how Turner was saying, the Meganula effectively busts in, sends Tweety Bird back to the Looney Tunes franchise, and just comes in out of nowhere. And normally, this is from what I've seen at times, with different media, when a monster like that first appears, the first people are dead. Like, full on, you don't get to see it. It just cuts to the news finding out that they've been killed in their bodies, they're beautifully mangled, blah, blah, blah. Here, no. They show actual survivability, and it's like, oh my god, we've seen this before. Get up and run.
Yeah, so, like what you were saying, like, if I had to nail it down, in this movie, I don't think Godzilla happened. Later, though, they retcon it and make it part of the same canon. However, there's a lot of evidence in this movie that makes me think this is a post-Godzilla world, and I'm actually about to get right into that. So, the two manage to escape, and they run, screaming for help, saying that there's a monster here. And since this is supposed to be a post-Godzilla world, it seems that the men in the town are more than willing to help them and run to investigate. Like, I'm talking like, it has to be like, what, 30, 40 people like run to their house to go check?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot of people.
It looked like the whole town went in to see.
Does the Meganula turn into another monster later on?
Shh, that's later.
Okay.
So, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
So, several police officers enter the home, and they are quickly attacked by the monster, and they find that their handguns are ineffective as several men are killed in the process. Panic ensues, and people begin to evacuate the neighborhood. In a surprising twist, the government's response to the monster attack is remarkably swift. The police chief, already on the phone, is demanding the immediate deployment of high-caliber machine guns to neutralize the threat from the JSDF, which, for our viewers, the JSDF is the Japanese Self-Defense Force, which was formed after World War II. The townsfolk seem eager to protect their community and spring into action as they wait for the army. Workers and police officers alike chase the monster up a coal dump, and there was even like one scientist carrying a briefcase. It's like, yo, I gotta go see this shit.
For science!
Everyone is there. And so they like corner it up on this like massive mound of coal, which is called a coal dump, I think. I don't know a lot about coal mining, but like unfortunately, two officers like go ahead of everyone else, and their bravery is unfortunately met with failure as the monster pounces on them, sounds like a tiger, and it's really funny seeing the little like miniature puppets they had. It was just flailing their bodies around, going like it was at a rave party.
Dude,
like, oh my god, if I ever make shorts, I'm definitely gonna put that as a short. Just like
I was just thinking of that.
Have the Meganula just waving them around and loop the footage with like rainbow colors in every direction.
Yeah, with strobe lights.
Oh, that would be so funny. Anyway, so the monster tosses their bodies and just goes whee, and just slides down the rest of the coal dump to get away. When the rest of the people catch up, the doctor that is nearby like goes up to their bodies and quickly concludes that all the killings were caused by this monster, which is good job, man. I didn't think you needed a degree for that one, but yeah.
Also, you would think that for me, how do you know that? It took you how long to do an autopsy on Yoshi's body? And to say that, oh, these are the exact same. How? You didn't even do a proper... What?
I guess according to what they said, that they're hacked to pieces, that they were hacked to pieces or some shit, and at a glance it's obvious, I guess. I don't know. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The creature then retreats to the mine, killing more people along the way before the army arrives. Dozens and dozens of soldiers gear up, armed to the teeth with heavy machine guns and rifles. And much like the real jumpers, this military outfit is swift to deploy and ready for action as they head down into the mine with Shigeru guiding them. This almost reminds... Has anyone ever seen those GIFs? It's like an anime where like a million FBI agents in full body gear are running up the stairs.
Yes.
Just destroying everything on their way down. Coming in through the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Mhm.
I know the FBI open up meme.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. That's the energy I get from this. Because I kept mentioning this as we watched it. It's like, this is exactly what I would wish the government would do when stuff like this happens. Could you imagine a classic 80s movie where the kids see a monster but no one believes them? What if they did believe them? This is what would happen.
We wouldn't have a movie.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, so
Do you mind if I take care of this part?
yeah, sure, go for it.
Deep in the bowels of Shaft 8, we see everyone and their mother, grandmother show up. Mine workers coming in with their, what seemingly looks like their pickaxes. Police, the military, all squeeze their way down the narrow passages. And before long, they stumble upon Goro's body. They leak to see if he's alive. What makes you think he's alive if he's this far down and you just found him? I'm sorry. But then the monster rounds the corner and attempts to attack him. As the heavy weapon team moves into the position, the men of the town clear the way as the machine guns pummel rounds and rounds into the bug monster, or the Meganula. Are we calling it the Meganula?
It is called the Meganula, but they don't call it that in the movie.
Meganula or Meganura?
Meganula.
Mega Noodle.
Nice.
The Meganoodle.
I am now dubbing it the Meganula. Thank you, Dion. As they pump rounds into the Meganoodle. But to their disbelief, and my own as well as Turner's, it has no effect, which you would think, wait a minute, what? You know what, that's fine. And despite being the size of a hippo, the monster is remarkably resistant to such firepower. With the carapace of the monster able to withstand a volley of high-caliber fire, the men retreat, and Shigeru has the bright idea to release a trolley of minecarts filled to the brim with heavy coal to kill it, which anyone would. Nico, would you in this situation would?
I mean, it looks like fun.
It does.
I mean, it's literally
Probably.
reminded me of the dwarf mine train ride in Disney.
I didn't think about that. It kind of does.
It kind of does.
It is putting himself in pretty unnecessary danger by riding the cart, though. Like
Yeah.
sure, it might be fun.
But it's fun.
Everyone here is about to die, dude. Now is not the time to be messing around on a minecart.
He had to get his badass moment, man.
Exactly.
You're right.
That badass moment then quickly leads, as he's riding it down, he's able to ride it for a bit using a bit of rear projection shot, which, honestly, like what they were doing with the Toho shots, this part is fun to see, considering the last couple of times we see them attempt to use these shots in the past two movies, and not necessarily getting it. It's like they were close on cracking the formula. For any of you who don't really know, rear projection is a special effects technique where pre-filmed footage is projected onto a screen behind actors. This creates the illusion that actors are interacting with elements from projected footage, even though they're filmed separately. The filmmakers first shoot the footage that they want to incorporate into a scene. Then a set is filled with a translucent screen at the back. The actors perform their scenes in front of the screen, while the pre-filmed footage is projected onto the screen from behind. In post-production, the screen is digitally removed, leaving the actors appear intact with the projected elements.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this almost sounds like the early stages of what we use today called green screen.
Yes, it is basically that. It's the only downside with rear projection is that you had to have the element already made. You can't.
Oh, okay. I see.
You can't make it later.
Gotcha. Okay. Now let's shift back from our little film lesson history back to the actual movie, and go with Shigeru using the minecarts as an effective hammer and the bug as a nail. They manage to crush the monster, and this is where they find Goro's body, and they notice that the water at the beginning of the movie, they see that the water level is really high. You can't really get a good view of it, of what's in there or what's out. Then later they notice that the water level has decreased. Before they can retrieve Goro's body, their worst nightmare happens. A second one appears, pinning Shigeru on the other against the other side of the opening. The men outside try to shoot the creature through the gap, but as before, their weapons are useless. And honestly, someone probably rolled a nat 1 and really pissed off the DM that day, because it almost seems like their own machine guns decide to collapse the entire cave, which is like effective of you shoot your bow and arrow, you somehow hit that one brick in the castle, the entire castle crumbles. Like, how does that make sense?
So-called load-bearing
Load-bearing wall.
So somebody didn't listen to their constructor or construction worker when they said, don't take out this wall. Took it out. Entire house comes down.
In this case, it looks like the entire zip code of land collapses down into the earth.
Do you have any idea how unlucky you have to be to hit something load-bearing in a cave?
That is a definite nat one. See, I try my hardest not to piss off the DM or not give the DM any ideas.
Someone rolled a nat 1. Shigeru, on the other hand, rolled a nat 20 on his luck because he somehow survives. Shigeru is the only one that is still inside the cave when it collapses.
You say he rolled a nat 20. I say he more like got the minimum of success rate because he did leave that with an amnesia.
But that's later. That's way later.
That's later.
Sometime later, the doctor and a ton of the mine's upper management are discussing the progress, attempting to dig Shigeru out before one of them notices an earthquake and yet another zip code of wilderness collapses onto the back of the earth. I like to believe it's the same person who initially caused the first deletion, and they must think, oh my god, I must never touch the earth again. Goes to his butt, I quit. I have to leave. The doctor then calls the Earthquake Institute, and they confirm the epicenter of the quake took place right in their backyard. The professor at the institute says that they need to meet near Mount Toya, a dormant volcano. You would think, thinking about this logically, wait, if things are already happening around there, you would think that it'd be the other way around. The Earthquake Institute calls, some high official, some like government official be like, hey, we've noticed these earthquakes like in both of these areas. Can you go see what's going on? But that's just me in my instance.
I guess in this scenario, what we're dealing with is that the doctor is an outside doctor who's just helping this town in particular. Like, besides the JSDF being called in to deal with the monster, this doesn't seem like it's gone nationwide yet, so I can understand why the Earthquake Institute is like, oh, that's an earthquake, put that down in the records.
They kind of write it down and be like, okay, leave it for later.
Yeah, so I can understand why the doctor would call them. All right, so they're outside this crater, which is pretty cool, because there's like a awesome little like map painting that we get to see of this. It's like, unfortunately, I don't think they fully nailed map paintings yet in color, because black and white you could hide a lot. It was kind of obvious where the border between real life and like the map painting was, but kudos for their attempt. So as they're staring out at this giant crater, we then see a man is stumbling down all the way down there, and it's Shigeru, and he somehow managed to survive my worst nightmare. So, audience, I'm going to inform you on something that's pretty interesting. People are going to think this is claustrophobia. That is not true. I have a fear of being trapped somewhere. Kleithrophobia is the phobia of being trapped. The term comes from the Greek word kleithro, which means to shut or close. People with kleithrophobia may feel fear when they are locked in a small space, such as a bathroom stall. Claustrophobia, on the other hand, is the fear of confined spaces. This is triggered by many situations or stimuli, including elevators, especially when crowded to capacity, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's being stuck in a small area. I don't have this issue. I've been to multiple, what would you call them? Not adventure courses. They're obstacle courses where you have to crawl your way through a narrow pipe. If I know I can get from one end of a pipe to another, I have absolutely no fear of how tight that pipe might be. But if I knew I was trapped, I would freak the heck out. So this guy survived being my absolute worst nightmare of being trapped underground. But, I guess he wasn't trapped because he actually managed to get out.
I'd be granted, like I said, nat 20 on the save because he found his way out.
So they managed to rush Shigeru to the hospital because he was not in good shape. And they quickly discover that he has a total loss of memory. And before I go into this little blurb that I had added, I was under the impression that this was a stupid writing thing. I didn't think that this was a real, no, I understand amnesia is real. I know it happens, but the description of I saw something so horrifying, I couldn't believe it, so I decided not to believe it, and just completely lose your memory. I thought this was a load of BS.
Can I interject in?
Yes.
Because we were watching it and he said this, and I was like, no, this is actually a very common thing. It's a form of PTSD, of my understanding. All right. We've mentioned before that I've watched a lot of MASH growing up, and MASH at some point turned into more of a informative thing to let people know what exactly happens to a lot of the soldiers during war and things like that. There are some cases of PTSD where the experience was so catastrophic that your mind just decides that you don't need to know it anymore. You don't need to remember it. And how a lot of the treatments when it went down for a lot of this is they would sit in front of a psychiatrist at the time, and it would be a hypnosis to recreate the moment they lost their memory to figure out what happened so that they could best get the best treatment. So this is exactly what happened to Shigeru. Something happened in that cave that was so terrible and catastrophic that his brain decided that he did not need to remember it at all. And that's all it is. It's just a form of PTSD. And usually something happens that, triggers it again and everything, which does happen in a quick minute.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that is I did some research, and it turns out that Kenji Sahara, who is the actor who plays Shigeru, this is his first major role, he took his character's amnesia seriously. He studied the condition's causes, practiced making his eyes go out of focus, and at one point worked himself into such a state he kicked a table, suffered bumps and bruises, and ripped his pants. I'm sorry, and I ripped my pants. Sorry if anyone's ever seen that episode of SpongeBob.
That is one heck of a form of method acting.
Those are the injuries that the guy was talking about?
No. Are you talking about the guys who got mauled in the caves?
What was one of those videos you credited at the beginning? Oh, The Brutality of Rodan by Firewood Media.
Yeah, that one. The last thing I'll mention is that the director, Ishiro Honda, took an immediate liking to this actor and would cast him in his films over and over again for how well of a job he did. In an attempt to jog his memory, they bring Kyo to visit him. However, it seems to have no effect. Desperate for any solution, they conduct numerous medical tests on Shigeru. Meanwhile, the doctor determines that the monsters are a prehistoric species. Despite their destructive nature, he believes that there is much more to learn from them and their extraordinary survival. And this kind of brings into something that I'm going to tell the listeners. I am crafting my own fan theory about what's going on in the Showa universe. It's not... it has the early workings of it, and it's going to involve some cut movies that were never made, but I'm working on a potential Showa Era Hollow Earth theory that is... So yes, a lot of people who watch the MonsterVerse movies are like, the Hollow Earth, but that's a new thing. It's like, no, I'm starting to think the Showa Era has like a serious theme of a Hollow Earth. At least not the whole Earth being hollow, but like there's a huge area near Japan or near the Pacific Rim where there might be like a gigantic untapped ecosystem where all these monsters are coming from. But I will get into that later.
Makes sense in context.
Yeah. In their attempt to stimulate Shigeru's memory, they start showing him photos of the Meganula. Like saying, don't you remember it? It's the thing that killed Goro!
And then he's just like, no, that's why I forgot it.
Yeah, and then he starts to like freak out and have a headache, and Kyo tells them to leave. And when we were watching it, I had a joke when I noticed the color of his belt. And he was like, oh, look, he's got a black belt in amnesia.
Dude, you killed me with that.
Considering the actor who did all of that to make sure he emulated the amnesia properly, yeah, that makes good sense. That makes great sense.
Oh, yeah, he really does have a black belt in amnesia.
He's got an actual black belt in amnesia.
So then the scene abruptly changes to the Japanese Air Force control room, where a pilot is flying over the ocean and he just radioed in a UFO sighting. So kind of like in the last movie, the movie takes a whole 180 and goes in a different direction, but in a good way, not stupid Three Stooges causing guts.
It's actually productive. It's so... I'm gonna drop an F-bomb. It's so fucking productive. Sorry.
So, like, as the pilot is talking about what he's seeing, it's pretty funny. There's a shot where, like, it genuinely looks like the Wicked Witch of the West is kind of just flying around because the UFO is just a black smudge on the screen moving around with a contrail behind it. It's pretty funny. The pilot then begins to say that it's moving at crazy speeds and making impossible movements like vertical climbs and sharp turns. It isn't long before the object turns around and attacks the jet, and we catch a glimpse of something new. What could it possibly be? It's Rodan!
Oh god, or no!
Da, da, da.
Tweet, motherfuckers.
Actually, going into this movie, I have no knowledge of the MonsterVerse, so I thought that the little fly dudes were Rodan at first. And I was like, really?
Oh, you're talking about the Munos?
Yeah. I was... Because I haven't watched, like, anything of the MonsterVerse. And I was like, really? This is the monster? They're revealing it this early? And then they revealed, like, Pterodactyl dude. And I was like, okay, cool. This is a better monster.
You know what's funny? A lot of people thought the Muto was Rodan before we had more information. I remember this distinctly. This goes back to high school. Wow. Yeah, that like there was a whole... People thought that was... the winged one was Rodan for a while before we got a better look at it.
I'm gonna be honest, when we saw the Mega Noodle, you know, because it looks like a larva, I thought it was like a weird pre-larva state for a bigger, badder monster that was Rodan. No, it's just food.
It's honestly... That brings it up. I kind of want to try and get someone to watch this movie and not know what the title is. Because I want to see what their reaction is to, wait, what the heck? It's not about giant bugs at all?
You would think the EDF comes in. EDF.
So I looked forward in your script, Turner, and you failed to mention in your script, and maybe I just not reading well enough, that when, what's his name?
Goro?
Shigoro?
Yeah, when Shigoro gets amnesia, his narration stops.
I was going to mention it, but yes, so when he does lose his amnesia, in a very interesting artistic choice of the American version, the narrator stops because Shigeru was the narrator. So, yeah, that's a pretty interesting touch. I like that.
Oh, I know you were going to mention it later, just I didn't see it in the script. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting ahead of myself, and I was. Damn.
And there was one more thing I wanted to do. Dion, didn't you say Rodan is like your favorite kaiju, or at least one of them?
He was my favorite kaiju when I was little, and I was just getting into Godzilla. My favorite kaiju now is Mechagodzilla 3, aka Kiryu, my boy.
Honestly, I think he's the best Mechagodzilla.
Hell yeah, he is.
I think his design is the best one, because I like what he does. I don't like how the new Mechagodzilla in the MonsterVerse looks. Like, the way he behaves is awesome, but what he does is awesome. I really wish they did a second pass on his design. I'm not a fan of it.
I'm not a fan of him being so stiff in the movies.
Yeah, he is pretty stiff. It's
my first introduction to Kiryu was in Godzilla Unleashed. He is much less stiff in there.
Well, he looks pretty good in the movies, but we'll get to when we watch the Millennium series, which is way later, but we're already on this for so long. So, this part kind of confuses me. Despite the plane going down over the Yellow Sea, they somehow find his remains. Like, they found his helmet covered in blood and, like, other parts of his plane, and I'm like, how? How could you have found that if he went down over the ocean? What? All right. And the Air Force officials are looking at his stuff like, what could have happened? Some of them are even thinking, like, did he make it up? Did he just snap? But they were like, no, he was one of our best pilots. How could he have possibly have snapped? Before long, the higher-ups even receive a report that a British cargo plane was destroyed over the Yellow Sea, the same area as their pilot. This confirms that the UFO, or Rodan at this point, is aggressive in nature and has continued its activity in this region. Following the events, the entire Pacific Rim is placed on high alert. And
Pacific
yes,
Rim?
I said Pacific Rim because that's
Pacific
one of
Rim?
my favorite movies.
Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim. I love
Yes.
that movie.
We are
Sorry.
so going to cover that, and then we're going to so shit on its
Oh
sequel.
god, the
I hate
second
it.
one was
That sequel
awful.
was stupid.
I will take care
Oh.
of that one.
If we're doing the movies, we got to do the animated series too.
Oh, yeah.
It was so great, and it came out with such a great song. Oh,
Banana. Sorry, I'm not going to do it. Oh, yeah. For the viewers, I want to encourage all of my cast members to, or excuse me, my squad mates to at some point helm their own episodes. And if any of you guys want to, please let me know. I'd be happy to. Godzilla's mine, though. Back off.
I'd be more than welcome. I would be more than willing to do if we ever did the animated Transformer '89 movie.
Ooh.
But let's get back into
Yeah, we can do
Rodan.
that.
We'll talk about
Okay.
that later. We'll
We'll talk about that later. Okay. All right. Pretty much the entire Pacific region is just put on high alert because people all over the world are seeing these monsters, but they're too high up. No one can make an accurate description as to what these things are. All air travel is grounded. Even cargo ships are being attacked. It's almost like a bald eagle going in and getting a fish. Just like, oh no! And there are even hints that there might be more than one of them, which is one of the minor differences between the Japanese and American cut. The Japanese, well, we'll get into it.
You think that Rodan looks at the cargo ships and thinks of it as a giant fish, but when he goes to grab it and take it up from the water, it's like, oh, this is too heavy. Drop it. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
No, he looks at it and goes, "There's too much iron in this meal."
That actually leads into a theory I have about what these Rodan are doing, but I'll get into it.
Fuck you all. That was funny. Fuck you all. That was hilarious.
Let's continue.
Anyway, so after all this news broadcast about how the entire world is like, what the hell is going on? There's even news that Mount Toya is now smoking and the whole area is getting shut down because they're like, oh, this might erupt. This leads into one of my favorite parts where the police chief of the mining town is like talking like, oh, okay, we'll close the roads, don't worry, just make sure no one goes there. Then like his assistant walks up to him, and I have a quote right here. I'll give you 2-to-1 odds. If Mount Toya is in any danger of erupting, people will go there. And well, he totally wins because like ironically, this scene shifts to a foolish young couple who venture to the volcano for a photo opportunity. To their horror, they find themselves under attack by the monster.
Because humanity's sense of escaping the mundane is much more powerful than their survival instinct.
That's such an interesting thing to say.
But he's not wrong, though. He's
That's
not.
exactly why that dude stayed at the cannery, man. He was so bored. He was like, I'm not going to miss this. I want to see what happens.
Left his girlfriend.
Oh, yes. So, in the Japanese version, the dude straight up abandons his girlfriend before they get gone. So that's one of the differences for the American version, that he actually dies with her.
I didn't believe it at first when Turner told me, but I'm like, no way. And I'm like, you know what? One of the times while I was at work, I forgot to mention this earlier. I did look it up. You know, at least that one scene. Yeah, no, he's just gone. It genuinely looks like he instant transmissioned away.
Yeah.
Just like.
So, anywho, the officials near the mining town recover a single high heel and a camera from the victims' remains. The location of the remains indicates that the victims were fleeing from a threat. At least that's what they deduce. They also discover that cows are disappearing from nearby pastures. So, I'll get into it, but that's another hint towards another theory I have. Among the recovered items, they found a photo of a wing, and they enlarged this image to show it to Dr. Kashiwagi, which, I'm going to be honest, it just pisses me off because I'm all about the little details. the negative of the photo has the wing, but the enlarged version, for some reason, has an extra foot added, and it pisses me off. Because it wasn't there in the negative, and the negative is the raw footage, so there's nothing cut out. Like, whatever. They never expected a compositor to be watching their movie.
Guess not.
Don't expect anyone to watch their movies until, oh my god, people actually like my movies?
So the doctor is convinced that it has to be some sort of prehistoric creature. So he then suggests to consult the reference books on the Mesozoic era. We then cut back to Shigeru and Kyo, and unfortunately she triggers, or more like fortunately, depending on your point of view, she accidentally triggers Shigeru's traumatic memories when she shows her birds that are hatching in their little nest. Suddenly, he has a flashback to the scene where it looks like he was teleported to the set of Star Trek.
He does.
Kinda, yeah.
Beam me up, Scotty.
He finds himself in a chaotic cavern, teeming with the Meganula. They're everywhere. And soon, in the corner, he also sees a giant rumbling egg is in the corner. I tried to figure out how this was done. I couldn't find a literal, this is what they did. I had to dissect the scene, and the way the egg cracks is through stop motion.
Oh,
Okay.
As Shigeru is standing there, surrounded by the very monsters that murdered all of his friends, and staring at a gigantic egg that is thundering as it cracks open, the moment of anticipation turns into a moment of surprise as this giant potential omelet hatches, revealing the terrifying yet strangely cute Rodan, puppeteered to perfection.
Yeah, yeah.
It's adorable.
It looks so... It's so cute. I love it. I want one.
You want a plushie of Rodan?
A baby Rodan.
Isn't this also the scene where we see the baby Rodan eat the mega noodle?
The mega noodles, dude.
Because there was a bunch of them scurrying around, and
This is the scene that caused his amnesia.
yeah,
But yeah.
and it was just to show that what we've been dealing with so far is nothing compared to this.
What do you think about that? We think let's dissect this real quick. To find out that the thing that's been terrorizing your town, that's killed like numerous of your coworkers and friends and nearly killed you and everything, has caused all of this panic, is just mere food for a bigger threat. You know what? Good on him. Good on his brain for making him forget all of that. I'd be so happy to forget all of that. Oh.
Exactly. So this whole thing was traumatizing to Shigeru, and it caused him to lose his memory. Back to the present, Shigeru experiences a full-blown panic attack. He is so sweaty in this scene where he's just like, right before he kind of finally comes to as his memories resurface. And Kyo is like, have your memories returned to you? Yes. Monsters. Yeah, I know. There are monsters. Like, no, you don't understand. There's like an even bigger one. So he then frantically rushes to the officials to inform them of his newfound knowledge.
And then the narration comes back, which I've been holding my tongue on it. I'm getting sick and tired of all the narration in the past 3 movies. I'm tired of it.
I don't think there is narration in Mothra, but I'd have to double check. I haven't seen it.
I hope there's no more narration when it comes to Mothra and the other movies, because to me it causes a disconnect. I'm not watching a movie, I'm watching an autobiography of a movie.
I'm just happy that they're not inserting a random American in these movies.
But it's still another narration. When we were watching it back, and when you made that distinction of, oh wait, his narration's gone, I was so happy. I was like, oh, thank God.
Oh, that's because he has amnesia.
Oh, great, he has his memories back. A convenient amnesia for plot is no longer relevant to plot, so he has his memories back. Hooray.
So you have the narrators back, and during a meeting where Shigeru goes to tell everyone what he knows, he shows Dr. Kashiwagi a photo of a pteranodon, and he claims that this is the closest thing to what he saw.
Wouldn't the closest thing to what he saw be a pterodactyl?
Well, that's what a pteranodon is. A pteranodon is kind of like the more broad term for the whole like group of animals that are, because one of them is pterodactyl. Like that's the poster child of the whole like group of animals that are pteranodons.
Okay, so saying pteranodon is like the equivalent of saying cat kingdom.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, Shigeru, even just getting his memory back and still having a bandage on his head, he is brave enough to say that he will lead a team down to show them where he saw it happen. And the doctor states that if there are more eggs, they must be destroyed. This guy's attitude is kind of like, you know what? I appreciate it. This is a post-Godzilla world. Screw the scientific potential. These things destroy everything. Let's go kill them before they have a chance.
Right?
Because the oxygen destroyer's gone. I'd like to ask, how would if the oxygen destroyer was still existent, how would they use that in the air?
I don't think it would work on Rodan because, as far as I'm aware, the oxygen destroyer only works in a water environment. So they'd have to somehow get Rodan in the water and activate it quick enough and keep him down there long enough for that to work. I don't think Godzilla could literally escape it, but Rodan, like, as you will find out in the movie, can swim and go into the air, like, seamlessly. Shigeru at this point is self-doubting if he even saw them in the first place, and this is the part, like, just like what Dennis said, the narrator just can't shut up! He just talks about everything he sees, like an audiobook, and it's so stupid. So, they go all the way down, back to the set of Star Trek, and the egg is gone. There seems to be no sign of it. And all the Meganula are gone. And where's the light in this cave coming
The
from?
phosphorus, or like the cave moss, man.
Sure, why not? While they're there, they do discover in a giant rock pile that there is a piece that Shigeru insists is a piece of shell. And it looks like a hunk of styrofoam.
You said a hunk of styrofoam?
It kind of looks like it. So... they bring the eggshell topside, and okay, this is we could do it for like 20 more minutes, and I'm gonna get really into this because I love science. I myself am not a scientist. I like to consider myself science literate, and I'm gonna get really into everything that's wrong of what they're about to go into. All right, so back topside, the scientists get a carbon-14 report on the eggshell stating it's over 20 million years old. This is BS because radiocarbon dating or carbon-14 dating is a scientific method that can accurately determine the age of organic materials as old as approximately 60,000 years. Not even a single million years. So, bullshit. It's bullshit. No, it only works on organic material, and it can only get you an age about 60,000 years. After that, it's a crapshoot. There's no way you can tell. Next, they determined the eggshell is reptilian by saying that the cell structure is primitive? This is also ridiculous. A cell from the prehistoric era would be probably indistinguishable from modern relatives, as life has always been complex since the dawn of multicellular... Why do I have such a hard time with saying multicellular?
Take a beat.
Multicellular. Oh my god.
You had it.
You're good.
I
Just
did
keep
have
going.
it.
Just keep going. Let the ball keep rolling.
Whatever. Just keep rolling, whatever. But my point is that organic cells, if you took dinosaur cells and cat cells, they would look equally complex. It's BS. They then say that the creature was from the late Cretaceous period, which is another bunch of BS because the late Cretaceous period was at bare minimum 66 million years ago, not 20 million years ago that they just claimed. More bullshit. So then they go on to use high school level geometry to determine the size of the egg based on the curvature of the shell that they already have. And they then use a computer the size of a friggin' distillery to get a volume of 100,000 cubic feet. They then think that it was full grown when it hatched. This is also ridiculous. Like, am I going nuts here? Like, how could an animal lay an egg the size of its adult form?
I know a little thing about the birthing process, and that sounds very painful.
Yeah, it's BS.
No. Maybe the growth process is different, but
Yeah, no, that's not.
Plus, didn't we clearly see a baby Rodan?
I mean, it's implied that that's just because it's that. Remember how hand puppets don't look anything like the suit?
True.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. But I mean, it looked cute.
That's also, we see it, us the viewer in Shigeru sees it. The officials, the soldiers, and the higher-ups have yet to see it. All they've been seeing is a wing and a foot in the picture, and a black dot taking out their fighters and everything in the water and the sky.
Yeah. So they think it was full-grown when it was hatched, which is BS. Armed with this data, Kashiwagi tells the officials that there's a giant pteranodon that's 100 tons and wings of 500 feet. His wingspan will almost be 4 times larger than Godzilla's total height. At least like the Showa Godzilla, which is insane. And that it has the ability to create the powerful typhoon winds. Somehow they already know the species is called Rodan, which is just like Ankylosaurus, the killer of the living. Do scientists just casually know of these monsters that are orders of magnitude larger than blue whales that are just casually in the fossil record? Like, what kind of world do these people live in?
One where there's a hollow earth, man.
Yes! That's why I'm working on my theory, because I'm like, how do you have a species name already? How do you know this thing exists?
Oh, it's funny to think they come up with names and making it sound like, oh, this has been here the entire time. When literally 5 minutes later, they're freaking out about what is this thing? Where did it come from? Where did it go? Where did it come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
It'd be one thing if they're like, I can't figure out what the hell this is, so we're going to make sure it's known. We're going to call it a Rodan, where we found out that it's similar to this species in the book of dinosaurs and this here. It'd be different if they went ahead and go, we're just going to call it this. This is what we found out. It's like, no, this is what it is. This is what we know about it. This is what other people have found out about it. And I'm like, no, complete bullshit. You are complete bullshit. All right, go take a bullshit drink and go grow some mushrooms in the corner because shame.
All right, and we're getting closer to the end, so we're almost done here. So the doctor, armed with all this information, poses a theory on top of all this that the egg was covered up by a volcanic eruption, thus sealing it in time. Bullshit. Then, when atomic explosions fractured the Earth, this caused air and warm water to reach the egg, thus causing it to wake up. This is insane. I like to think, personal theory, that this is a cover story to blame Western nations instead of admitting that their own mining activity woke it up.
That would make sense, because the bomb test...
Yeah, we're in the water and it's nowhere near the sites.
It's like, exactly like what you two were just saying, like, all the nuclear tests that I'm aware of took place way in the Pacific, like, way far away from Japan. I can't possibly imagine, like, a seismometer would obviously be able to sense that an atomic bomb took place in Japan from the Pacific, but, like, it'd be minimal. Like, no one would really be able to notice it. So, like, you'd probably hear it more than you would feel it. So, I'm pretty sure this is a cover-up.
That would definitely be an interesting story beat.
Oh, yeah. It would be. A little break from everything. But going off on time, I think we put a good amount for right now.
All right, troopers, that's all the time we have for today, but join us next time as we finish part 2 of Rodan. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the podcast, and be ready for the next part dropping soon, potentially on Halloween. This is Real Jumpers, signing off.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for jumping with us, y'all.